Hello, everyone. My name is Sunny Heike-Snapton. I'm the NACD Northern Plains Region Representative, and I'd like to welcome you to the Communication Tips and Tricks breakout session. In this session, you'll hear from three speakers about innovative communication topics. Laura Johnson with the Washington State Conservation Commission will share its customizable elevator pitch and word bank resource that's available for all conservation districts across the nation to use. Betty Jo Tompkins with the Hillsborough Soil and Water Conservation District in Florida will share tips and tricks for engaging different communities and creating unique partnerships. Attendees will also hear from Brent Brewer with the Grant County Conservation District in Oklahoma to learn how to provide assistance to cooperators dealing with mental health stress and suicide prevention, ensuring that no one's legacy gets left behind. Our first speaker is Laura Johnson. Laura is a communications manager for the Washington State Conservation Commission, where she's worked since 2013. She has a master's degree in environmental communication and a bachelor's in film and video. Her previous experience includes providing design and strategic communication services as a consultant, writing for a regional newspaper, and working with Michigan Sea Grant to promote fisheries heritage and resource conservation in the Northeast region of Michigan, where she grew up. In her free time, she enjoys all things outdoors, including fishing, hiking, camping, and hunting. The second speaker is Betty Jo Tompkins. Betty is Executive Director of Hillsborough Soil and Water Conservation District and President of the Florida Conservation Districts Employees Association. Betty graduated from the University of Florida and has extended education from U.S. Chamber Institutes and Academy with Notre Dame. Betty has worked in lobbying and with government representation and has also served as Executive Director of Chamber of Commerce and Farm Bureau. She was involved with companies working on publishing, organic certification, and public relations. Betty Jo has extensive civic activities and recognitions. Our last speaker is Brent Brewer, and he is the Farm Stress Counselor for the National Farmers Union. He also works for Syngenta Chemical Company. Brent has served on the Grant County Conservation District since 2001. His lengthy experience includes work as an educator and counselor with the Oklahoma Cooperative Council, and he has decades of service on boards and cooperatives focused on grain, agricultural enhancement, and beef marketing. Brent is a graduate of Oklahoma State University. Before I pass the floor to our speakers, I'd like to remind our participants that the speakers are online to answer your questions during their presentation by you using the chat box. Laura, Betty Jo, and Brent, thank you for being with us today. Welcome. And Laura, the floor is now yours.
Hi, everyone. I am Laura Johnson, the Communications Manager with the Washington State Conservation Commission. We're the state agency that supports, funds, and helps coordinate conservation districts and voluntary conservation programs in Washington State. I want to thank NACD and all of you in the audience for the opportunity to talk about some of the resources we've been developing in partnership with conservation districts to help all of us be better prepared and ready the next time somebody asks us questions like, what's a conservation district and what do conservation districts do? When asked those kinds of questions, here's an illustration of what for many of us has been our default response. The picture that's pouring TMI, too much information, that was us. Somebody would ask us a very basic question about conservation districts, what they are, what they do. And because districts do so many things for so many people, we would, for lack of a better term, word barf all over that person. We would just go on, zigzagging about all things conservation and conservation district. But the problem is the poor person who had asked us the question, depicted here as the cup, they could only retain a small portion of what we were saying. That's the nature of the human brain. And a lot of what we said was just going to be lost and spill over. So the resource I'm going to be talking about today, the elevator pitch and word bank for describing conservation districts, is the tool we launched in 2020 to help us really distill our messages down to what was going to be of most importance and interest to our particular audience without overflowing their brains. I'm going to start by giving a quick overview of the purpose of having an elevator pitch to describe conservation districts. Then we'll look at the process we use to develop shared and collaborative messaging despite how different all of our conservation districts are. And then we'll look at the product itself, which is available for any conservation district to use. And finally, I'm going to close by sharing a few other communication accessories we've developed that can come in handy for situations when you might find yourself using an elevator pitch. Let's jump to the purpose of having an elevator pitch. In a nutshell, an elevator pitch is a 15 to 30-second statement that covers who you are, what your purpose is, how you do it, and why you do it. It's something that you can say in the course of an elevator ride. In Washington, we'd been wanting an elevator pitch for a while to help us answer really basic questions about districts, but it got moved up the to-do list after witnessing a meeting between a couple seasoned conservation district board members and a first-year state legislator. The board members had scheduled a meeting with that legislator to talk about their budget needs, and knowing that their time with them was going to be very short, they had jumped right into talking about this backlog of service requests they were getting and how state funding could help them address this growing demand. And they didn't get very far because the legislator interrupted them saying, wait, I need to take a step back. Who are you guys? What is a conservation district? What do you do? And pretty similar to the graphic I opened on, the board members really struggled to answer that question on the fly clearly and concisely, as many of us had been struggling. And the more partners they said they worked with and the more services they said they offered, from nutrient management to K-12 education, the more confused the legislator really seemed to become. So the purpose of having an elevator pitch and word bank to describe districts is that it can be a lifesaver in situations like that and in many other ways. If it's widely shared and used, the language in your elevator pitch can provide unified messaging that helps us all amplify our voice and really saturate people's minds and knowledge of conservation districts. It helps conservation districts separate themselves from the pack by really concisely stating their unique value, which can come in really handy when you're writing things like grant applications and state budget requests. They help you be a lot more efficient at your job. Having an elevator pitch means that you have this statement that's ready to auto-populate any About Us field, whether it's on your website or on a fact sheet or in a presentation. It's this very concise description of districts that's at your fingertips. And then, of course, it comes in handy for those impromptu questions about what districts do that you can encounter in meetings like the one I described between the legislator and the conservation district board members. So that's a bit about the purpose of having an elevator pitch and some reasons why we had decided that we really wanted one. And that brings us to the process. And we could jump right into the product itself, but I had decided to spend a few minutes sharing our process because really found it to be a collaborative but manageable way for us to develop shared messaging and communications. It's a process I could see us using again to develop future resources with our conservation districts. And I think probably as many of you can understand, writing an elevator pitch about conservation districts proved to be a pretty big challenge because each district by nature is very, very different. In Washington, we have 45 conservation districts, each of which is very unique. They specialize in the particular landscapes and land uses in their area, and they tailor their work and even the language they use to talk about their work to the local people and communities that they serve. And we wanted an elevator pitch that would be useful for all of us, but to have all 45 conservation districts involved in writing an elevator pitch would have been a group writing and editing nightmare. And we also didn't have the funding or time to do full-on market research where we would conduct focus groups or really work with people and partners across the state extensively. We needed something that was going to be manageable, but collaborative and scaled to meet our capacity level. And we opted for what I call a sort of cross-section approach. We developed our elevator pitch in the course of one in-person workshop with a small but really representative group of conservation districts followed by a series of web meetings with our existing communications group that's made up of about 15 conservation district staff and board members from across the state. And the table on the screen right now shows some of the planning we did for that first in-person kickoff workshop. We wanted to invite conservation district participants who together would represent all the different geographic regions of our state, the various cooperators that all 45 districts work with, and communities from urban to suburban to rural. So when we started planning for this workshop, the first thing we did was make a list of who are all the cooperators that we know that collectively all 45 conservation districts work with. And from that, we then started to invite members from 12 to 15 districts who together had experience working with all those cooperators. We also invited a representative from a partner agency, the Department of Agriculture, and we invited a representative from our state association and our state's board director for NACD. The task for participants of that initial workshop was to internally come to agreement about what makes conservation districts as a whole a unique service provider unlike any other in our state. And for any marketing folks out there, their task was to come up with our positioning statement. And this step was really important because it allowed us to do an in-house check-in of whether we among our conservation district community were on the same page about the value the districts offer and what distinguishes districts from any other organization. Until we could come to internal agreement about that, it would have been very hard for us to try to write a collaborative statement for an external audience of saying who we are. So this photo shows us standing in front of our work from that workshop, and thanks to whiteout lighting, it kind of looks like we're standing in front of a blank flip chart. But you can't see the words, but we're actually standing in front of what would become the foundation for our elevator pitch. We had really come around the idea of conservation districts being a trusted community-based hub of expertise and funding that really empower people to practice conservation. And again, that language that really carried over into our elevator pitch later on. And before I move on from this workshop, I want to point out this gentleman here, Marshall Stowe, who facilitated it. He's a conservation district board member who also made his career in marketing. And I had the pleasure of working with him on this project. And for me, Marshall was not only key because of the time and expertise that he dedicated, but it also meant that this effort to write an elevator pitch wasn't solely being driven by our agency or by our association. It meant it was being driven from within the conservation districts themselves, and it really helped all districts put more faith in it. So we brought the foundational work from that workshop to our existing communications group who would do the work of writing our elevator pitch. And our communications group has about 12 of 15 members from districts, our association, and our agency. And they've been working together in monthly web meetings for about the last 10 years with the purpose of creating communication tools that will help all districts better tell their story and be recognized. And their members represent, similar to our workshop, they represent every region of our state and a wide mix of districts and communities. So they were a really natural fit to move the elevator pitch forward. The communications group got to have a lot of fun with highlighters. We, over the course of a couple web meetings, had each individual member write their own elevator pitch based off the language from that initial workshop. And then the group got to review them. And what we did with highlighting is we highlighted what we found to be particularly effective and powerful words in green. We flagged words that we thought potentially could trigger some people in yellow. And then we marked in red the words that we had experienced or knew could alienate certain audiences. And that exercise, other than just being kind of fun, helped us use our collective experience to identify what we felt to be the most generally inclusive language. For final product, we decided to aim for as much consistency as possible in our elevator pitch, while still allowing flexibility for conservation districts to make it their own and tailor it to their particular audience. And for that reason, we set it up kind of like a Mad Lib. So districts can insert different words and phrases and make sure the language works for them and, more importantly, works for their audience. The final product is a one-page resource with the elevator pitch on the top and the word bank on the bottom. And I'll talk through how the Mad Lib and word bank part works in a minute, but first, here's the general elevator pitch that we came up with. Conservation districts of Washington state partner with private landowners who own over 50% of land in our state to voluntarily take actions that keep our air, water, and soil healthy. They're community-based hubs of natural resource expertise and funding, led and staffed by locals who understand the needs of landscapes and fellow community members that they serve. And you'll notice that in that, the key elements of the pitch, the who, what, how, why, they're all underlined. And that's because those are the words and phrases that can be mad-libbed. Because while this, we felt like it was a real general starting point for an elevator pitch, we really want to make sure you can tailor it. So those underlined words, those underlined elements of the pitch correspond with the column headings in the word bank below. So that word bank is a list of other options for describing conservation districts, what they are, why they do their work. And it comes from our workshops and web meetings. There were a lot of other strong words and phrases that didn't make it in our final general elevator pitch, but we still really didn't want to lose them. And that's what's captured there. And I think the other thought is that it also invites districts to make it their own, and it doesn't have to be just the languages in that word bank. They can know just from their experience with their community and their cooperators, different words to plug in for those elements. So for example, in the first line, some districts may feel like their audience really likes the idea of hearing that district's role is to partner with landowners, while other districts might prefer to say that they empower or support them. If they're speaking to an audience whose priority is agriculture, they may want to focus on the why element of why they do their work, on ensuring viable farmland and access to locally grown food and products. Or, since we've completed this resource, we've had a lot of conversations about how we might make our work more inclusive or try to invite more people to join us in conservation. And so there may be times where we want to talk more about how districts benefit and serve all people, not just landowners. But if we're applying for a grant where the funder is seeking partners who have expertise in engaging landowners, then that would be a time where we'd want to highlight that aspect and strength of conservation districts. The point being, this pitch is really designed to offer a consistent structure, but still flexibility for districts to make it their own and target it to their audience. Because districts do and are everything that's listed in that word bank and more, but the pitch structure helps us distill that down into a couple short sentences with the word bank inviting you to use your own language. And while our general, that starter elevator pitch has a phrase about the percent of Washington that's privately owned, we're hoping at least that the most of it is general enough that it's going to be helpful for any conservation district out there. And we invite you to use and modify it. You can find it in the marketing toolkit that's on the Conservation Commission's website, and that web address is on the top of your screen right now. And this toolkit is filled with resources that we've developed in partnership with the communications group that I mentioned earlier. And everything in there is designed to make it easier for all districts to market themselves and tell their story. The resources are organized under 5 different tabs, and you'll find the elevator pitch and word bank under that messaging tab. And that leads me to the final piece of my presentation, which is to share a few other communication accessories from that marketing toolkit that may come in handy for situations where you're using an elevator pitch. Things like tabling events at fairs or conferences. It's fairly likely that you're going to run into people who will have a lot of questions about what districts are, what they do. And in addition to having your elevator pitch ready, it can be helpful to have a brief, really visual fact sheet to leave them with. And for that, we created this half-page list of 10 ways conservation districts can help you. The hope is that your audience will be able to see themselves in at least one of the 10 different services listed there. It can be a great teaser to show a sampling of all you do without overwhelming them with too much information or all the technical details of each of these services. You may want to have an elevator pitch, like we've said a couple of times now, for those meetings with decision makers and legislators. There's a few other resources in our toolkit to help with those situations too, including tips to engage elected officials and decision makers. This provides suggestions for how to connect with those decision makers, like inviting them to write a guest editorial for your district newsletter, or offering ideas for what you can ask and talk about with these decision makers while you're in a meeting. For example, asking them what they hope to achieve over the next 3 years, and then after listening to them, sharing how your district may be able to help them with those goals. I assume a lot of us have had meetings with decision makers where we're trying to explain or get support for the important but often challenging to describe thing that is technical assistance. So we created a fact sheet and graphic to help visually show all the important steps that is technical assistance and must be supported and occur before ground even breaks on a conservation project. And so far, it seems like this graphic has been a lot more effective for us when we're communicating the value of TA to decision makers than any narrative description that we've tried before. There's also some talking points on voluntary conservation programs. And these are particularly helpful if you know you're going to be meeting with a decision maker who may be a little skeptical about the value and worth of voluntary conservation approach. You might rely on your elevator pitch to make a strong statement about who your district is in a grant application. And often those grant applications are going to require letters of support. One tool in our marketing toolkit that can be helpful for that is a worksheet for capturing effective testimonials. It can be really helpful for deciding who would be most effective to write that letter and be your spokesperson, and for giving prompts for what that person could address in their letter of support. It includes this list of 10 questions to help your supporters touch on some key points and tell a strong story while still giving them enough space to be really candid in how they talk about you. We've had really good luck selecting maybe 2 or 3 of the 10 questions. A couple I particularly like is asking, why did you choose to work with the district rather than any other organization or entity? And what word or phrase best describes your relationship with the conservation district and why? So we give them a couple questions like that and just ask them address those in their letter or testimonial. And it really helps draw out some great supporting stories. And finally, elevator pitches can come in handy for things like annual reports or fact sheets on accomplishments. So you have the very quick and effective about us statement, and then you can spend the rest of your time really just getting to the nitty-gritty on what you've accomplished. We've got one more new resource that we just released that can help with that. It's this visual equivalents for conservation measures list. So these are measures for liquid and water, weight and mass, distance and length and area, and they're all organized in tables with options for visual equivalents. So for example, 42 gallons is equivalent to the volume of 1 bathtub. And that can help make messages about your accomplishments stick. Some of the visuals in the tables are hyperlinked. For those, when you click on them, it'll take you to a folder or it'll take you to a graphic that's in a folder where you can find an image that's available for conservation districts to download and use in your communication materials. For example, one way we used this recently was for one of our budget requests. And so you can say, it tells you the resource has an equivalent for how many cubic feet of water per second is equivalent to filling an Olympic-sized swimming pool. And that allows you to translate statements like, These irrigation projects return an estimated 14.1 cubic feet of water per second to our salmon streams, into something that's a little bit more likely to resonate with your audience, such as that's enough to fill 14 Olympic-sized swimming pools a day. Again, all those resources and the elevator pitch and word bank are in our marketing toolkit. And some do have Washington-specific information, but most are general enough that we hope that they're applicable to all districts out there, or with a couple tweaks can be made to be. So we invite you to use and modify anything in there that's helpful. And if you do, we just would love to hear about what you use and if you found any way to make a resource in there even better. So that is all I have. I hope it has been helpful for you. My contact information is on the screen if anybody wants to virtually network later. And I hope to meet all of you when we can gather again in person soon. Thank you so much for this opportunity and your time.
Thank you so much, Laura. That was an excellent presentation. We'll now be hearing from Betty Jo Tompkins with the Hillsborough Soil and Water Conservation District from Florida. Take it away, Betty Jo.
Hello, I'm Betty Jo Tompkins, Executive Director of the Hillsborough Soil and Water Conservation District, located in Tampa Bay, Florida. Now you might ask yourself, Tampa, that's a large metropolitan city. Do they have a lot of agriculture? We absolutely do. In fact, out of Florida's 67 counties, we are the third largest in agricultural revenue. And we place 119th out of over 3,000 counties within the United States. I'm also pleased to say that our offices are right here in beautiful downtown Plant City, the winter's strawberry capital of the world. And not only that, we host the annual Florida Strawberry Festival, which ranks among the top 40 fairs in the United States. It's a real pleasure to be here today to talk to you about the Hillsborough Soil and Water Conservation District and the very important aspect of public engagement and public awareness when it comes to teaching people about the role and scope of conservation districts around the country. Now you might ask yourself, do our programs work? Well, we certainly think they do. Each year in our elections for supervisors, we have between 3 and 5 candidates in each race. On top of that, in our latest election in November, we had over 500,000 votes in each of our district conservationist races. And our winners received 200,000 to 300,000 votes each. As you can tell, people want to be part of the Hillsborough Soil and Water Conservation District. So please join me in telling a little bit and learning a little bit about our district's story. Welcome to the Hillsborough Soil and Water Conservation District. We're so proud of all the things we do and the groups that work with us to make our district a success. The fact of the matter is, you might look at our logo and say, wow, that's awfully busy. But the truth of the matter is, we found that in most cases, people have no idea what the range and scope of programs, projects, and activities conducted by conservation districts is. And therefore, we put together a logo that quickly tells everyone what we do and how they can be involved. Our district operates on a very basic core belief, and that belief is that conservation is everybody's business. Think about that. It's not just for someone that's older or younger, but absolutely everybody in the community. And for that reason, we do our programs, projects, and activities focused to our audience, which is inner city, urban, suburban, and rural communities. To be effective as a district, we encourage everyone to create a signature event. Now that event can be something that's a single day, or it can be a week, a month, or even year-round programming. The Hillsborough Soil and Water Conservation District created the Hillsborough 100 Conservation Challenge, a group of programs, projects, and activities geared to both youth and adults. and something for every community. The purpose of the challenge was to broaden our reach, and our goal was simply this: to create and establish an integrated program that brings enhanced conservation awareness and education to individuals of all ages, ethnicities, and socioeconomic groups throughout Hillsborough County and beyond. The ambitious Hillsborough 100 Conservation Challenge, which was launched in 2017 and is now an annual event, culminates in a broad array of action awareness projects and initiatives. Our focus period falls between Earth Day and Arbor Day, which are located in April, and runs through Soil Stewardship Week in May. We developed an action plan, and to do so, it's important to remember a number of elements. First, develop creative programs, projects, and activities year-round. Showcase and promote initiatives during the Hillsborough 100 focus period. Make sure that you're inclusive. Look to involve each and every group you possibly can, because everyone can find a program, project, or activity that they're interested in. There are 5 ways to be engaged. First, create programs for children, teens, adults, and seniors. Involve agricultural, business, civic, nonprofit, educational, and governmental entities. In other words, involve the whole community. Reach out to all cultures and nationalities. There are all kinds of groups out there who would love to be engaged in conservation activities. Link and partner with existing initiatives. It's not necessary to reinvent the wheel. If you know of a great program or project, why not contact them and ask them if they want to be part of your overall challenge initiative? And finally, involve the media. It is critical that you engage all types of media in promoting your programs throughout the year. Reach out to the public. We do so by engaging the public in many different ways. One of the things we do is have a number of tabletop exhibits. We use these exhibits in libraries, in schools, and almost before any group we can, and the exhibits circulate throughout the year. In addition, we have a major exhibit which we use for all of the area fairs and festivals we're involved in. The fact of the matter is, Hillsborough County is quite unique because not only are we home to the Florida Strawberry Festival, but we're also the home to the Florida State Fair, one of the major fairs in the country, and the Hillsborough County Fair. Those are just 3 of over a dozen major exhibits that we involve ourselves in annually. We use our exhibit as a great opportunity to promote all of our supporters. As you can see in this slide, all of our major donors are listed on vertical panels, which are included in all of our major fair exhibits. I'd like to just tell you a little bit about some of the things we do at area fairs. At the Florida State Fair, we have an exhibit in the Ag Hall of Fame. We participate in the Fresh from Florida Breakfast. We participate also in Hillsborough Harvested Days. In fact, on both Sundays of our state fair, they are dedicated to Hillsborough Harvested and the Hillsborough Soil and Water Conservation District. And we're the only group that has more than one day at the fair. We're also active in the Governor's Lunch, the Ag Woman of the Year program, the Ag Hall of Fame banquet, and the Champion and Champions Youth Awards. In March of each year, we're active in the Florida Strawberry Festival with not only exhibits, but educational events of numerous types. In the month of October, we participate in the Hillsborough County Fair. There, we sponsor the Youth Plant Show for all young people, as well as a plant auction. The auction actually engages many nurserymen in the community as well as landscapers and raises about $5,000 to put back in our youth programs. We also include educational exhibits and a barbecue dinner. Other festivals we're involved with include the Go Green Fest, Earth Fest, Unity in the Community, the Clean Air Fair, and the Florida Ag Expo, just to name a few. Our Earth Day Fest includes not only our own exhibit, but exhibits from all types of groups within the community. The next area of importance is supporting our youth, and we cannot emphasize that enough. Our plant auction supports our youth programs, and whether you're in an urban or rural setting, I guarantee you if you go out and ask for help from your agricultural community, people in the nursery and landscape business will come to you and be willing to participate in any way possible. In fact, we also make sure that we give recognition to all of our supporters in our plant auction, and we give them annual certificates which they put on display in their businesses. This in turn reinforces the auction and brings more people to each auction each year. The other thing we do with the plant auction is it gives us a great opportunity for young people to purchase plants there, which they can use at other fairs and festivals later on during the year. Other youth events we're involved in include poster contests, speech contests, photo, ag venture, envirothon, land judging, and working with the University of Florida College of Agriculture and Life Sciences. The most important thing you can do in public engagement is to build your corporate support. Now, we build our corporate support by a number of different avenues. One of them being our Hillsborough 100 Conservation Challenge tabloid. This annual tabloid is published during the Hillsborough 100 Conservation Challenge, and it is distributed throughout the area in the Tampa Bay Times, as well as at all our fairs and festivals throughout the year. Now, we make sure that we give special thanks to our major cooperating partners, and those would be Miracle Grow, Lippman Family Farms, Odeorn Insurance, M&B Products, the Florida Strawberry Growers, and Mosaic. Our tabloid also features all of our other cooperating partners because we know that together they make a difference. Again, looking at our booth, you can see how important it is for us to promote all of these partners throughout the year. In fact, it's so interesting that last year at the state fair, we actually had someone come up and ask us, what do I have to do in order to get my company's name on one of those banners? Equally important is the fact that we proudly belong and support to many, many organizations ourselves. First of all, we support the Association of Florida Conservation Districts, and of course, the National Association of Conservation Districts. We also are involved with the Fresh from Florida program, FFA 4-H Scouts. We're engaged with 3 different chambers of commerce and then a lot of commodity groups. Those are just some of the groups that together we all make a difference. We're part of the Coalition of Community Gardens in Hillsborough County, which includes almost 30 gardens located throughout the Tampa Bay community. One of the other exciting programs of ours is the Lippman Farms Garden Challenge, which involves over 25 schools. They got involved first by supporting a farm tour of ours, and when they saw how enthused and active we were with the community, they agreed to sponsor our school garden challenge. They actually provide us planter boxes for all the schools. They provide us gift cards for soil and nutrients, and thousands of transplants of cherry, grape, plum, round tomatoes, watermelons, cantaloupes, and bell peppers. The program is highly successful. We started a couple years ago with 12 schools with the idea to increase by 4 schools each year. The second school year was 16 schools, and by the third year we had jumped to 26 schools. Building political support is absolutely critical. The fact is, from this slide, you can see that we're visiting with the Florida Commissioner of Agriculture, Nikki Fried, at our state fair. We have a great relationship with our public officials at local, state, and federal levels. In developing relationships, it's extremely important to remember a number of factors. First, get to know your public officials, and most importantly, make sure you know their staffs. These people can be valuable resources for each and every program you want to initiate. Make sure you engage your public officials in projects and activities that involve and affect their constituents. That's critical. They care about their constituents and appreciate it when they know you too care about them. Invite them to your fields and festivals, to your event kickoffs and awards ceremonies. We know most of our public officials on a first-name basis, and they come out to all kinds of events for us. Ask about their conservation interests and offer insights and information. They want to be as well informed as possible, and we are the avenue that can provide that information. School involvement is equally important. We do Arbor Day events throughout the community and get everyone involved. Once you engage your public officials, don't be afraid to ask them for support. First, you've built your buy-in. Now make sure that you create your case for funding. Focus on why it matters, and that means telling them the whole story of conservation and how it's everybody's business. Be clear on what you plan to accomplish. Don't just make an offer about generalities. Be very specific. Tell them what your needs are and what you want to accomplish. Then make sure you don't settle for crumbs. Most support comes from making a quality ask. When it comes to the political spectrum, remember, if you're not at the table, you just might be the one on the plate. And be accountable with accurate and quality reporting. An effective lobbyist is providing information, and it's critical that your supervisors are all well equipped to present that information in a clear and concise manner. Telling our story is critical, and this is something we do year-round. We started our challenge in 2017, and our first tabloid was a 16-page color publication that focused primarily on conservation. By 2018, our tabloid had grown to 24 pages, and we increased the areas of interest to include community garden. In 2019, we increased our scope again and included features about the Extension Service, which allowed people to have easy access to various forms of information. Now, our tabloid offers the opportunity to educate the public in many different ways. One of the features we had is on plastic and our 4Bs program called Bad, Bad, Better, Best. Quite simply, it explains to people that when they're in the grocery store and they pick up that plastic bag from the produce department, that's bad. That takes 500 years to degrade in the landfill. And then they carry that same plastic bag to the front of the store and put it in another bag. That too is another 500 years in the landfill, and that's the second bag. Now, what's better? To always ask for paper. And the very best thing you can do is to bring recycle bags. We teach this to children at an elementary school age, and it's amazing how much they absorb. And it's a good lesson for adults too. Other programs that we support and include in our tabloid are Food's a Bargain, Hug a Farmer, educating the public on the fact that food in the United States is actually cheaper than anywhere in the world as a percentage of income. Our other program, which has been very successful, is the Be a Honey, Buy a Hive program. in which we encourage groups, civic and otherwise, to purchase beehives and allow us to place them at locations where they can provide the most pollination support. We also use the tabloid to promote all of our other kickoff supporters. We hold an annual kickoff luncheon each year, which draws about 200 people in the community who support our programs and where we recognize each of the winning programs from the previous year. Critical in any communications program is the direct-to-audience element, and we use that by a number of different sources. We have a publication called Monday Matters. In addition, we use social media, our website, email, direct mail, and flyers, handouts, posters, and certificates. Our Monday Matters provides us the opportunity to communicate both internally and externally. We focus on current activities, provide updates, include presentations, funding, judging, ribbon cuttings, meetings, and other upcoming events. Additionally, our newly revamped website includes all kinds of information and again affirms the fact that conservation is everybody's business. We also do a number of other publications, and we use these as educational tools. For our children's program, we do water cycle bracelets and soil babies, and we have printed materials, as you can see, that promote both of these. Throughout the year, we create a lot of publications as well as flyers to promote our programs, projects, and activities. Among those are our Hillsborough 100 Conservation Challenge Kickoff Luncheon, our land judging competition, and our annual plant auction flyers. We also produce a number of other contest flyers, including the one for our speech contest and our annual poster contest. We hold our contest for NACD during the school year, and during the summer, we also produce competitions for posters, which are included on our summer parks programs. We make sure that we recognize each and every child who participates in our poster contest. That means that whether they're a winner or not, they will receive a certificate, and the certificate also includes a picture of the poster they entered. The kids love this, but in addition to that, our winners receive cash awards, and every single child who participates in any of our poster contests receives a free ticket to our county fair, and their poster, and this is hundreds of them, are on display at the fair. It's a win-win because it brings in not only the kids, but also their parents and gives them a chance to show off their work. Equally important is taking advantage of speaking engagements. We present programs at virtually every type of group. All the schools in the county, whether they're public, private, parochial, or charter schools, as well as civic clubs such as Kiwanis, Lions, Metro Civitan, and Rotary, before political groups, church groups, chambers of commerce, and community associations, as well as annual presentations before government agencies at the county and the state level. Whatever your programs, projects, and activities, make sure you show gratitude. There's simply nothing as important. There's value in a personal letter, and that includes whether they're to businesses or governmental entities. Don't just send an email. Personalize the letter to that individual and make sure you tell them why you appreciate their support. Also remember that that support doesn't always have to be in the terms of financial dollar support, but it can be just as valuable if it's in-kind support. There is no question there is value in making connections, And those are connections that continue to endure, whether they're with individuals or companies or civic or other groups. The value of a connection can never be underestimated. There's also great value in public acknowledgement. And that's the very reason that we promote all of our sponsors and cooperating partners in not only our tabloids, but in our year-round exhibits. It is critical to make sure you acknowledge their support. And finally, it all starts and ends with two simple words. And those words are thank you. And if you say thank you and you mean it, you'll get the support of everyone. I'd like to say in closing, thank you so very much to NACD for giving us this opportunity, and to each of you for taking the time to learn more about the Hillsborough Soil and Water Conservation District. Please feel free to contact us at any time and visit us on our website, HSWCD.com. And remember too, we're located right here in Plant City, the winter strawberry capital of the world, and we invite you to come and visit us at any time. Have a wonderful day.
Thank you so much, Betty Jo. That was an excellent presentation. We'll now be hearing from Brent Brewer with the Grant County Conservation District in Oklahoma.
Hello, NACD. Thanks for the chance to come in to talk with you today. My name is Brent Brewer of the Grant County Conservation District. Diamond Jubilee, 75 years. Congratulations, NACD. That's a long time. The title today of my talk is a little different than soil and water. The title of it is Life is Like a Box of Chocolates. And it appears that we're in a stressful time. And I wanted to help, and this was my way to contribute to the soil conservation districts of the United States. In the story of Forrest Gump, in the opening scenes, you see a feather just kind of come out of heaven, and it lands on the foot of Forrest Gump, and he puts it into his suitcase, which if you look into the suitcase, you can see just a little bit into his life. His ping pong paddle, his Curious George book from a child, some other things that you really wouldn't think would be packed in a suitcase. And he was sitting on a bus stop bench in Savannah, Georgia, offering a box of chocolates to just about anybody. The box of chocolates looked just like this. He was willing to make friends with just about anybody and listen to them if they would listen to him back. And the idea of Forrest Gump having a life that was such a simple life, but yet he touched so many people in so many ways. Like Forrest Gump, I went to Savannah, and I took 3 days of training down there with about 30 other people from across the United States. We were a mixed bag of nuts, no doubt. We had people there who had mental issues. We had people there that were training to be doctors. And we had some people there that were just training like myself to go back to our hometown and seek out people that were highly stressed, some to the point of suicide. This kind of started out as a small deal, but it has grown into a pretty large one. Forrest, he touched his mama, and no doubt destiny is used in the movie, and destiny is called me to do this. There's no doubt. Chance is also used in the movie, and chance has touched me with this ability to come out and do this. I spent 3 hard days with those 30 people and got to know some of them pretty well. A man from Ogden, Utah, who'd been there because his neighbor had taken his life by suicide. And whenever you think of stress, you think of financial. There are so many different types of stress in people's lives. First of all, there are people that are just overworked and they're to a breaking point. And they're out there in the agricultural scene, they're dairying, or they're trying to get the crops in, or they're trying to get the crops out. And it just turns into a stressful time, and tempers flare, and people become so stretched out and stressed that they just don't sometimes know where to turn. Alcoholism is part of the problem. Sometimes people have drugs and they have stress. There's no doubt, in the Forrest Gump movie that Forrest's girlfriend and childhood friend Jenny was physically abused. And she, in the movie, took a couple times where she almost took her life. Thank goodness she didn't, because in the end, she made Forrest very happy. Some people have medical illnesses. There was a person in our class in Savannah that had the onsets of Parkinson's disease. And in 3 states in the United States, if you can get 3 doctors to agree that you have a chronic illness that's not going to get better, that'll let you go ahead and plan the date to take your life. I understand people wanting to do this if the quality of life gets so bad, but otherwise I think a human life is well worth saving at all cost. I work with the Oklahoma veterans, and a lot of them, the wounded warriors, they have PTSD. I also have a nephew who's retired from the FBI that has PTSD, and it's a terrible, terrible condition to have, because you do end up with emotional stress and anxiety, nightmares at night, and these are all things that go with it. I'm kind of here today to tell you, when you see your neighbor, you really just kind of have to ask him, how are you doing? How's things been going? And you have to look at him or her and say, this is something that we want to look at, because if they are stressed and they do unload on you, they will, you need to check up on them in a day or 2. And if they escalate and keep having problems, you need to encourage them to have and seek out some help. It's a terrible thing to have a neighbor take his life by suicide. As a director of Grant County Conservation, my testimonial story today, and I have a few, but the one I'm really going to talk about is having a board member that served on my board, and I had taken him to hire a secretary. He'd been swamping all night in the oil field on a bulldozer, and he was tired and he was worn out. And I took him to the meeting. He wanted to go and help us pick out our secretary. I brought him home. And when we sat out in the yard and visited for about 15 minutes, it was getting kind of late. And just a few days later, I got a call from our secretary that he had taken his life by suicide. And, it was like a gut kick from a mule, and it really hurt. If I had just had this training then, I probably would have been able to save him. His destiny would have been changed. Now, talking just a few things that you probably need to look for in someone is the fact that if they are drawn back, they may quit going to church. They may quit going to watch their children play basketball at the school auditorium. They may come into a meeting if they're a director, and they may seem like they're just about half there. They're dazed and confused. And it's tough to determine, but you kind of got to ask them, are you doing okay? And if they say yes, you got to leave it alone. But then again, if telltale signs keep going on, you need to ask them. And if they are contemplating taking their life, you need to ask them, are you thinking about this? If they say yes, and you say, how are you going to do it? And they admit to you that they have thought it out in their head, it kind of takes this out into a new level of urgency. some of the people that you can call, and I will share those on the screen with you. We have hotlines out there. Please use them. Put them in your phone, and if you run into somebody that's emergency, the life you may save is your own. I'm helping several couples right now. I have an email. Drop me a line on email. Text me on my personal phone number. Or also, you can get a hold of me on Facebook Messenger and just message me. Tell me who you are. Maybe tell me a little bit about your situation. And I'll get right back with you and help you. If you have a loved one or a neighbor that is needing help. It's difficult times now. With our political arena the way it is, our COVID situation, it is just very hard for us to remain and keep our sanity and our happiness. The stories that I learned in Georgia, in Savannah, like I said, it doesn't always have to be financial. Midlife crisis is a big one. And a lot of the guys realize, and women, that they're having trouble and they don't know who to turn to. Their spouses don't know who to turn to. I got contacted by a lady not long ago, and she was worried about herself along with her husband. I've got them kind of on a road back. Got them around the dangerous curve anyway. We hope to keep them going, and we hope everything works out for them. I check up on them on occasion. They can always text me, call me, email me, and they know where I live now. That we've gotten well acquainted over the last month or two. I want to hope you guys will all do a very good job of looking at the people, and I appreciate this opportunity of speaking to the NACD. This is a highlight of my life. And I'm going to conclude with thank you to all that were involved. It has been a good meeting. I appreciate each and every one of you. My name is Brent Brewer. 1, 2, 3. I'm out.
Lori, Betty Jo, and Brent, thank you so much for such excellent and informative and relevant presentations today. They were truly remarkable. I hope everyone has enjoyed this breakout session as much as I did. Please don't forget to return to the meeting agenda and pick one of the great sessions that you would like to attend next. Thank you all for attending.